Team Hell No vs Dolph Ziggler and Big E Langston. Dolph Ziggler is pinned after a conchoke slam and Daniel Bryan flying headbutt. Has there ever been a Money in the Bank winner who's gotten a shorter shrift than Dolph Ziggler? Even if he cashes in and wins a WWE title, he's been doing jobs for months. There's no way he can possibly overcome that and have a chance at making it. Here's how bad it is. Ziggler did the job in this throwaway tag match at WrestleMania so that WWE could protect his bodyguard Big E Langston. That's the definition of giving up. Later in the evening, heads turned after Del Rio defended against Swagger. Fans were expecting Ziggler to cash in. He never walked the aisle, prompting boos. It's likely the last time anyone will care. The WWE doesn't believe in Ziggler. Why should fans? Ryback vs Mark Henry. Mark Henry pinned Ryback after reversing the shell shock with a splash. Poor Ryback, his star has dimmed remarkably since he burst onto the scene as a main event last year. At this point, his catchphrase, "Feed me more," is really over. Much more over, frankly, than he is. Fans like chanting it. Watching him wrestle? They could take it or leave it. This match was built as an epic clash of two titans, men who both shattered the NFL combined bench press record. Assuming you want to suspend your disbelief and take that as given, it's a pretty impressive feat. Too bad the actual match wasn't nearly as interesting as the build. That's the problem with Ryback. You can shine a turd all day and give him a memorable and chantable catchphrase. But, at the end of the day, he's still a giant turd. I'm not judging Ryback quite yet, but I do smell an unpleasant whiff of something foul in the air. The finish, mercifully, came out of nowhere. Ryback managed to lift the gargantuan Henry on his shoulders for the shell shock, but Henry managed to reverse things and flatten him for a quick pinfall. Ryback got his heat back after the match, which means, unfortunately, we'll likely have to watch this again. I guess that makes the fans the real losers. Wade Barrett vs The Miz. The Miz wins the Intercontinental title with the figure 4 leglock. Credit to The Miz. I made quite a bit of fun of him for his complete and utter failure to master the figure 4 earlier this year. But at WrestleMania, on the grandest stage of them all, Miz got it right. Imagine, if you will, inheriting the single most iconic finishing hold in the last 30 years, a hold millions of kids in the South could all apply with their eyes closed. Now imagine the world's best wrestler giving you the nod, passing the hold on to you and then you botching it multiple times on national television. If it was anyone but The Miz, I would have felt horrible for the guy. But it was Miz, so I just laughed and pointed. I'm a big believer, however, in giving credit where due. And Miz came up with a really cool setup for the figure 4, about the only thing anyone will remember about a tepid WrestleMania opener. Chris Jericho vs Fandango. Fandango pins Chris Jericho with a small package after Jericho hurts his knee. What a match. Technically, this was Fandango's debut, though his alter ego Johnny Curtis has been wrestling for years. But make no mistake, this was still a pressure cooker and a live or die moment for the rising WWE star. The world, as they say, was watching. And what they saw was a talent ready for prime time. I hope Fandango bought Jericho a beer or 12 after the match. It would have been easy for Jericho to sleepwalk his way through this feud, pretending to put Fandango over while doing all he could to make sure no one bought into the new superstar. Plenty of veterans would have done just that. Jericho was himself put over by Scott Hall in a way that didn't help him much at all back in his WCW days. But Jericho was all in on Fandango and did his best to make the match work. And work it did. Until Centimeters Punk and The Undertaker stole the show, this was the best match of the night. I'm still skeptical that the Dancing with the Stars gimmick is going to work. If he's smart, Fandango will immediately look for ways to transcend that dead end. One way to do that is with great wrestling matches. And he's off to a good start. Jack Swagger vs Alberto Del Rio. Alberto Del Rio made Swagger tap to the crossarm breaker. Jack Swagger's America died on Feb. 19, 2013. Before you rush to Wikipedia, that's not the date of any important legislation in Congress. President Obama made no speeches about immigration on that day, and no pressure groups twisted the WWE to drop this compelling angle. But something significant did go down. Jack Swagger was arrested for driving under the influence and possession of marijuana after a WWE event in Biloxi, Miss. I don't know what plans the WWE had for Swagger before that fateful night. But afterwards, Swagger's America was dead on arrival. No matter how good Colter's promos, no matter how inspired Swagger's wrestling, he was doomed for failure. Swagger and Colter have spent weeks preaching politics, but they taught the rest of the locker room a lesson that had nothing to do with the immigration debate. If you've had a few, call a cab. Substance abuse and driving is a ticket straight to the undercard, or worse. The Shield vs Sheamus. Randy Orton. Big Show. Dean Ambrose pins Randy Orton after Roman Reigns hit him with a spear. The action was fast and furious in this six-man tag match. Yet another pay-per-view success for the Shield. There has never been a three-man team this exciting in recent WWE history. The only team that compares in my lifetime are the immortal fabulous Freebirds. It wasn't all Shield, though. Across the ring were three serious players, former champions who were capable of competing with anyone in the world. And they showed it. Things were going well for Team WWE for a time, highlighted by Big Show stripping the Kevlar vest off of Dean Ambrose and hitting him with some jaw-droppingly hard chops. But things fell apart when Randy Orton took a hot tag that the Big Show thought should have gone to him instead. Orton cleaned house as Big Show steamed. Orton caught Seth Rollins coming off the top rope with an incredible but numbers got the better of him and Orton was blindsided. Roman Reigns flattened him with a spear. Big Show could have come to his rescue, but instead stood motionless as Ambrose got the win. After the bout, Big Show sprang across the ring and knocked out Sheamus with a big punch, then gave Orton a smack for good measure. The Shield claimed they would win because of their coherence and chemistry. It turns out they were right. Triple H vs Brock Lesnar. Triple H pinned Lesnar after a pedigree on the steel ring steps. To paraphrase George Barkley, if Brock Lesnar and Triple H have a great match and no one in the arena reacts to any of it, did it ever happen at all? I loved this match even if the crowd of 80,676 was too exhausted from the Undertaker CM Punk classic that preceded it to share in my joy. The crowd needed a break, a popcorn match to let them unwind before another main event level contest. Instead, Lesnar and Triple H came right out and the crowd was too tired to care. That's a real shame, because this was ridiculously hard-hitting and brutal bout. Bad for both competitors' long-term health. Almost certainly. Hey, it's not my body, right? Brock Lesnar channeled Chris Benoit, Perry Saturn and shoot-style great Gary Albright, suplexing Triple H all over the arena. Despite marrying into extreme wealth, Triple H is still willing to put it all on the line, sacrificing his body for his art. Both men paid homage to the great Masahiro Kimura, arguably the greatest judoka of all time, by using the shoulder lock the Jiu-Jitsu world has named in his honor. At one point Lesnar even locked in the Kimura while sitting on the top rope. I'm not sure why that was supposed to make it hurt more, but that didn't matter. Not to be one-upped, Triple H locked in several Kimuras of his own. Lesnar made hilarious facial expressions and nearly tapped about 100 times. But it was a more familiar move that felled Triple H's dastardly foe, a pedigree on the ring steps. This was a fantastic match. I expect significant disagreement from some of you, because it was far from perfect. At one point, Lesnar even badly botched a pedigree. You can nitpick any art, and this wasn't a match designed to wow with technical brilliance. This was about raw force, and both men gave all they had to give. The Rock vs. John Cena. John Cena pinned The Rock after the Attitude Adjustment to win the WWE title. This match was a failure, both of execution and design. The Rock and John Cena played "Let's Trade" finishing moves for almost 15 solid minutes. When they weren't trying to hit their own big moves, they were mimicking the other guy's big spots. It was predictable and a little bit boring. Done right, a similar match layout can work wonderfully. In the single quote 90s, Japanese wrestlers worked matches based around deadly finishes with great success. So did the Attitude Era superstars, including The Rock. But this was overkill, too much of a good thing, style completely devoid of substance. Cena got his moment, the big win over The Rock that was supposed to make us see him as an equal to men like newly minted Hall of Famer Bruno Sammartino. Instead, it just highlighted that his gimmick is completely dead. It's time for a change. John Cena, bad guy? If that's not where the WWE is headed, and soon, this is going to be a very long year for hardcore wrestling fans. CM Punk vs. The Undertaker. Undertaker pinned Punk after a tombstone. CM Punk is the best performer in professional wrestling today. Better than that, he's the best in this business since The Rock in his heyday, a combination of wrestling prowess and impeccable instincts for the dramatic. Despite a physique that would get him laughed out of any Gold's Gym in America, despite a prickly personality, despite a pedigree that includes his fair share of backyard wrestling, Punk has made it to the top of the game. That, folks, is a credit to pure talent. For 4 consecutive years, The Undertaker has wowed the wrestling world. His opponents, Shawn Michaels and Triple H, are first ballot Hall of Famers. The matches were all unique and legitimate masterpieces, and each among the best matches in WrestleMania history. For CM Punk, those were huge shoes to fill. It was a task he could have easily failed. Somehow, despite the odds, despite an aging Undertaker, despite his own fatigue, his own aches and pains, Punk lived up to every expectation. The match was a bona fide classic. Despite myself, I began to believe that he could actually do it, actually become the man to beat the streak. That his shoulders stayed on the mat for 3 seconds is immaterial. CM Punk was the real winner of WrestleMania 29. He calls himself the best in the world. Against The Undertaker, he proved that was more than a gimmick. That is a shoot.